Hey everybody, so I'm in my yarn studio today instead of my painting studio, and I am going to show you one of my favorite techniques for making blankets. It works for blankets of all size. You can do little lap blankets, doll blankets, all the way up to giant bed blankets, and I like it because you don't need to know in advance how big your blanket's going to be. You just keep working until it's the size you want it to be. So we're going to work on what's called a corner to corner or C2C pattern. I don't really follow patterns all that well. I prefer just to start and go. So this works really well. I did find at Walmart a Lion brand yarn. I found it on clearance. It's called Shawl in a Ball. Makes one shawl. One ball makes one shawl. It's a cotton acrylic blend, and it is a medium weight. It says to use a J size hook with it, and hopefully the pattern they show on here, triangle of course because it's a shawl, so it will work really well with a corner to corner. So I'm going to use this one ball and just make it as big as it'll go to make a shawl in a ball. So this one is called Community Coral. They did have one that was a little more bluish, like ocean colors. This one's called Community Coral. So let's get started. I will show you my preferred method for making blankets. I'm using a J-size hook. This is a Clover ergonomic hook. I also have just a plain Boyle, I think they're called Boy J-size hook. But I get tired of using just the flat part, so I actually put a pencil holder on, and that helps too to give you some cushion while you're working. But for J size, I prefer this one, the ergonomic hook. So for C2C, corner to corner, you just start with a chain. You're going to chain 6 every time for your increase. So you're going to chain 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. As with everything, keep track of your tension. Try to keep it the same throughout. This is a pretty thin yarn with a pretty thick hook, so I got some nice big holes in there. So on your increase of 6, you're going to go back 4 so that we can have a chain and 3 double crochets for each square. So I'm going to count back 1, 2, 3, 4. Insert my hook here, yarn over, pull through 1, pull through 2, pull through the last 2. So now I have a chain that counts as a double crochet and a double crochet. So I'm going to do 2 more so that I have 4 double crochet for this block. There's 2. Oh, I'm sorry, that's 3 and 4. So each of your double crochet blocks will look like this. So there's my 4 double crochets as my block. So now I'm going to increase, so I'm going to do 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and it's the same as last time. Go back 4, 2, 3, 1, hold on, 1, 2, 3, 4, and do my 3 here. So I again have 4. So you also can do decreases, of course, because when you're working on a blanket, you want it to be square, not triangle most of the time. I am not going to do decreases in this video just because the piece I'm making does not call for decreases. I'm only making a triangle size piece, but I'll do that at some point, or there's a lot of other videos out there. So there's my 4 again. So now I have my first block on my second row. So you're going to take your hook and go all the way over to your chain space on this first block, insert there, pull up a loop, yarn over, and then you're going to chain 3. 1, 2, 3. That's your first double crochet, and then you're going to use this end chain as your row that you're going over. So 3 double crochets there. 1, 2, 3. So now I've got 2 rows, one that has 1 block, one that has 2. If you wanted a little heart, you could just stop right there. So now we have a perfect little heart. All right, so we're going to chain 6 again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So all this really calls for is chaining and double crochet. A little counting. 2, 3, 4. I think the counting and getting stuff in the right place is really the only challenge on this kind of a pattern. So you just really need to know how to identify the stitches in your work so that you're always going into the right place and getting the right stitch. But the pattern's very forgiving, so even if you're not in exactly the right place sometimes, it's okay. So there's my 3rd row, 1st block. I'm going to go into this chain space, pull up my loop. 1, 2, 3. There's my chain for my next. 3 double crochets will make this block. 3 and 4. And then because I have 3 now on this row, I'm going to go into my next, find the end chain again, go into that. And this yarn's a little fuzzy, so it's not quite as clear as it would be just on a regular cotton kind of yarn. But like I said, as long as you get in the right general vicinity, the pattern's very forgiving. So pull that through. That's just a slip stitch. 1, 2, 3, there's my chain, and here's my increase now to get up to 3 blocks for this row. So every row will have that number of blocks. So if you're on row 3, you'll have 3 blocks. If you're on row 60, you'll have 60 blocks because you're increasing a block every row. The block consists of the chain, the beginning chain that you use, and then your 3 double crochet. Now I'm using double crochet, and you just kind of got to pull it around to get all the spacings even, but see how nice and kind of open and lacy this works up. Perfect for a shawl. You can use different size yarns, different size hooks to get different get different spaces, get different textures in there. The last baby blanket I made with this, I used a very small hook, like a size F, on a 4-weight yarn like this, because I wanted it to be very tight so that it kept the baby warm. But for a shawl, just open and lacy is beautiful. So, and the beauty of this is you can use any size yarn, any size hook. It doesn't matter if your tension is loose. It doesn't matter if your tension is very tight. As long as it stays consistent, you're fine. If you're having a very bad day and your tension is very, very tight, that's okay. Just make it tight for the whole project, and that's just what it will look like. It's not as critical to have your tension right as it is for some stitches. And you can use, I'm using a double crochet, but you could use a half double, you could use a double, you could use a triple. Not really a single so much, that wouldn't work. But I've used it quite often with a half double crochet, which I really like, which makes your blocks a little bit shorter, because that's the next size shorter stitch on there. If you don't know how to do a half double, drop me a comment. I can do a video on how to show you how to do a half double. It's one of my favorite stitches. I think it's because it's a little more compact than a double, I feel like it's a little bit tighter. And 3, 4, 5, 6. Sorry, I can't multitask sometimes. But the half double I like just because I feel like it gives you a little bit tighter, and if you're using like a chunky yarn or something, it just kind of tightens everything up and doesn't make it quite so floppy, I guess, is the technical term for it. But so that's the corner to corner. Now I have done graph gans with corner to corner. It's perfect for that because literally just whatever one square on your graph is, it can equate to one square on your on the project that you're working on, and it works out really well. I've made a couple. I've done grass scans with just the straight line single crochet. I find that to be much harder. It was harder for me to count and harder for me to keep my line straight and whatever. But the corner to corner, I find the graph to be easier. I did have, if you get off though, then you got to rip the whole thing out to fix it if you're off by one. Although, I mean, I guess that's true in a straight line too. But you can see I'm just going into the next chain, chaining 3, chain space, and chaining 3, and then double crochets, 3 double crochets for each block. So, and what I also like about this is you can gauge your yarn in advance. So if I know I only have 5 balls of a certain yarn, let's say, which happens, you know, I don't always buy every ball that they have on the shelf, so sometimes I only have 5 balls, and I inherited, 1, 2, 3, I inherited a bunch of vintage yarn from my grandmother when she passed away, and it's beautiful and I love using it, but I can't get any more. So I have to just be very mindful of what I have and use what I have. So with this, if I know, for instance, I have 5 balls, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I can say, okay, I'm going to do 2 balls in increases, 2 balls in decreases. That'll get me my square. And then, goodness, so many things ringing while I'm trying to record. Oh well, that's life on the ranch, I guess. Luckily, there's been no goats or chickens or kids or dogs in here bothering me while I'm trying to work. But anyway, I'll do 2 balls of increase, 2 balls of decrease, and then a ball left for, you know, border or whatever I need it for. So you can kind of plan in advance what your size is going to be. And see, I didn't go perfectly in my spacing there, but it's okay because this is forgiving, and the next row will just bind it together, and it doesn't matter. So keep working through. I've got 1, 2, 3. I've got 4 rows starting row 5, so I'll have 5 lines across there. I'll keep working this, and when I get it done, I will post another video of what it looks like and finishing it off and putting an edging on. So hope you'll try corner to corner pattern. It's really fun to do. You can just do it mindlessly in front of the TV at night, which is, once the kids finally go to bed, that's all I can do is mindless things. So if you're like me and need something mindless just to keep your hands busy while you're watching TV, check out Corner to Corner. If you have any questions, drop me a comment. I'll help you with it and help you work through the pattern. I love doing this. I've done quite a few, like I said, baby blankets with it. I think it turns out beautifully. So drop me a comment. Let me know what you think, any other stitches you'd like to see or any challenges you're having, and I'll help you work through. But until next time, just remember, if at first you don't succeed, you're not me. Have a great day.